So you're limited to the amount of funding that you have going forward, therefore you're probably tapped out right now. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Well, at this point, what we received, we anticipated would be enough for about 475 transactions. The idea was to stabilize neighborhoods, and so if we offered it statewide, we would be diluting our impact. So we decided to put it into concentrated communities so that we would be able to do enough loans in each community to really be able to move the needle from a value perspective and kind of get rid of enough of their zombie inventory to stabilize those neighborhoods, because we know
additional funding coming in the near future?
We are hopeful that there will be additional funding.
And when do you, in that timeline, do you think you might see that?
Well, I know that there were some proposals in the housing plan for that fund, those funds, that would extend it an additional couple of years.
You're not talking about the housing plan that we're still working on? Is that the one within the budget for the $2 billion that we haven't decided how we're going to spend that yet? Correct?
I think it's that one.
Okay, then we have a serious problem coming up.
Yes.
Sarah Sanders?
Sorry, thank you.
I'm a little rusty on this VA question again, housing question. The market of New York State is, the homes cost so much, especially in New York City, and the loans only guarantee so much of that. Is there a way that you can act as like a second loan, or how do we go about buying a house that is not fully covered by a VA loan?
Well, so the federal VA program, you mean,
Sure.
goes up to $417,000, I
Sure.
believe. Our program does go above that, not significantly, and it's only in high-cost areas like New York City. It's not statewide. And so that would be an area where if we had somebody over the federal limit, we would probably flip them into the state program. So what we've really tried hard to do is make sure that they, understanding that the federal program is generally going to be the best case for a lot of people, that if you have a buyer who's active duty or needs repairs on their property or exceeds the limits, or for some other reason doesn't qualify for the federal program, that they're all aware of and know to then flip them to the state program. I believe we go up to $590,000 in New York City. So we do go above that 417.
What was that again? How much?
I believe it's about 490,000. I can research it and get back to you with an exact number.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Colonel.
Because the zombie homes has come up now a couple times. I mean, is there a way to find out what that inventory of zombie homes may be and then be able to make that connection?
It's funny you should ask that, because there's a bill in the Senate that has been proposed to create a statewide registry. I know at the local level, as a recovering town supervisor, we came up with our own registry to try to register these zombie homes, find out who owns them. In many cases, it requires some title work and some background research, but the municipalities seem to have a better handle on it. Certainly the ones that are part of the New York Rising program, that is something that has enabled us to get metrics on some of these homes. But there is right now proposed legislation to create a statewide database.
I do think this gives us an opportunity potentially to attract veterans to communities where these homes may be available. They get them at, get into them at maybe less than what the rest of the homes in the neighborhood, and then,
Right.
Yeah, that's been the thought. That's the whole philosophy behind it. It's a win-win if you look at it. But there's also there's implications of ownership. Who owns it? Is it in foreclosure? Who has title? Is it in an estate? Are they paying their taxes? Is there a tax lien on it? So there are a number of issues that make it hard for these homes to just come off the registry. In some cases, we made it easier to demolish some of the structures that are uninhabitable, but it's something that would require, which is why we're talking about it. It's a win-win. It makes common sense. People come up to you on the street and they say, why don't we give that home that's boarded up to a veteran's family, let them, and we're trying to work out the details so that becomes a no-brainer. But there's a lot of moving parts, and we're working on them one at a time. We're going to, yes, I think we're going to have to move. Okay. If you have
No, that's right.
Okay. So we're going to move on because we do have to get, after housing, we want to get over to tax. But right now I'd like to introduce, again, Beth Gabellini, who will talk about Long Island Services for Undeserved.
Okay,
underserved.
good morning. Again, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to be here. So the specific program I'm going to be talking about is Supportive Services for Veteran Families. This is a grant that came from the VA. It was a direct result of President Obama and Secretary Shinseki. It was started in 2010. It was in many parts of the country, but not here on Long Island until 2013. We serve both Nassau and Suffolk County. Our sister agency, SUS in the city, covers the boroughs in Manhattan, so we have a full range of services. So if we should ever find a veteran on Long Island who has a support system in New York or in one of the boroughs, we can certainly help that veteran to live in that area. There are basic eligibility guidelines. I should also mention that we are one program of two on Long Island. EOC also has the SSVF program. So we are not in competition. Unfortunately, there are plenty of people to assist, so the funds do not go unused. Basic eligibility. So the veteran needs to have a discharge, anything other than dishonorable. They need to meet at least 50% or below of the area median income. So the amounts for, say, a family of four, anything approximately, because they have changed the AMI guidelines, about $54,000 and below for a family of four. So that person and that family would qualify. What's nice is that the veteran can quantify the family as whomever he or she chooses. So the veteran could have a son, a girlfriend, a parent with them. It just depends on who they view that family member as. All the family members' income is taken into account when we look to make up the family composition. Let's see. Sorry. Trying to think of eligibility. They need at least 1 day of active duty service prior to a date in September of 1980, and it's 2 years after that. And so that's pretty simple. That's the basic eligibility. A discharge other than dishonorable, and to be 50% or below the AMI, and the right amount of active duty service.
And if I could just also include, we don't help homeowners. It's a strictly rental program.
Correct. Thank you for pointing that out. So the nice thing about our program is that it's absolutely holistic. It addresses all the different aspects of helping someone to create sustainability. So it's first and foremost a housing program. So the veteran and his or her family does need to be in a housing crisis. So a housing crisis could mean that the person is in rental arrears and has an eviction notice, a 72-hour notice from the sheriff's department, or that they are literally homeless. They're living on a street, in a car, in a place not meant for human habitation. And sadly, I can tell you that within the first 6 weeks of being up and running in October 2013, we found over a dozen veterans living in their car. So there is a big problem. A lot of people don't realize that people on Long Island don't have enough money for food. And we do find people that don't have food.
Beth, can I ask you a question about
Yes,
that?
sir.
You know, I'm from Nassau County. I guess this is for Marlo or for Beth. We just back up a second. You're actually working with the veterans?
Correct.
Can you tell us what is animating this? In other words, if I come down from outer space and I say, how could it be that the people that gave the most for this country are in this situation? How would you explain what's going on writ large? I know a lot of circumstances are specific to families, but writ large, what are you seeing out there?
So there are a lot of issues. I mean, first you have the high cost of living on Long Island. It's bad. You know, obviously you've heard the statistics that living on Long Island is 50% higher than in other parts of the country. So that, I think, is a major factor. You have mental health, substance abuse, that is also an issue. And certainly that's actually one of the gaps in services that we have, is that we have a lot of veterans who have low to no income. And that is an absolute tragedy. We have veterans who the only income they make is their service connection. And they may only have a 10 or 20% service connection. That is not going to buy you or afford you a roof over your head, food, clothing, and basic necessities of life. It's just not possible. So those are the major things that we're seeing. So I hope that answers your question.
I think just the lack of affordable housing. You know, I think one of the things all of our agencies are struggling with is landlord engagement. And I know that I've talked to the senator about this the last time we were here, is you know, talking to those large corporations on Long Island especially, getting them to maybe present lower rental rates and maybe combine some utility in there so that it makes it more affordable for our landlord, for our veterans. talking to private landlords in the community, getting them to want to bring in a veteran into their home. Because a lot of the times that we're finding that we're having to do this educational piece that, you know, not all veterans have PTSD.
Right,
And
they're stereotyping.
Yeah.
You know, they see something in the news and then they think that every veteran has PTSD, and they don't.
And is there any preference program that is initiated that you could bring to a landlord to say, you'll get a tax reduction, you'll get something?
As a matter of fact, we're meeting with the senator after this to discuss some great ideas that we have.
Yeah,
And is there anyone right now that's doing it right, that you could say the Smith Corporation reserves 10% of their, is there anyone who's helpful?
Just to piggyback, there's only one corporation I saw. We had I'm sorry, I mean, the Wyandanch Corporation, we placed a couple of vets in there, and I placed about 5-6 vets. So what they did was break down the floors and certain apartments for low-income and extremely low-income individuals. So they made the rent flexible, but I don't see it in all the new developments that are coming up. All I see is either 50% of AMI or higher, so they're not making any apartments available to our extremely low veterans or extremely low veteran people in our communities.
So I'll interject there for a minute. Fortunately, in my discussions recently with the county executives team and the county executive, in Suffolk County, because we're able to get a hold of this early, we don't have, fortunately, in Suffolk County, which is the largest proportional county with veterans in New York State, we don't have a veterans crisis, a housing crisis. We have a handful now of veterans who are homeless, and within a short amount of time, we're able to deal with that population because we've been able to successively get at larger groups. And over the past couple of years, we're down to a small population, a handful, again, of individuals who are homeless but are very quickly brought into housing through the different agencies that we work with. So we're able, like in Westchester County and Suffolk County, we're fortunate that there's not this urgent crisis for homeless veterans because we've been working on it hard and we have the resources. But in other counties in the state, that's not the case. And that's certainly where we need to focus our efforts.
Actually, I'd like to comment on that because I can tell you we have a running group every month. It's based on Priority 1 funding from SSVF. And I can actually tell you, as of last count, we had 154 veterans living in shelter. And we had 5 chronically homeless veterans who were homeless and not all accepting assistance. So those are the actual numbers of homeless between Nassau and Suffolk County that we're aware of. The nice thing about SSVF is that we can take a veteran that is living in a shelter or living on the street and put them into housing. So we don't just deal with housing, we try to create sustainability, long-term sustainability, to help that person long after the program is over. So how do you do that? So we have an employment team. We have people that work on resumes, interview skills, help get them a suit if that's what they need. We can even provide transportation to an interview, provide bus tokens if that's the case, provide train tickets. We have someone who actually connects with business owners, HR departments who want to hire veterans. So we can actually do a matching system, like who might be a good fit, make sure that person has their resume, make sure we're calling to follow up with that person. It's not just about that because we have a population of veterans who are unemployable. So we have a benefit coordinator, someone who will make sure the person is connected with benefits, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's getting them a SNAP card, making sure they have money for food, let's see, and any other benefits they may be entitled to, whether it's VA benefits or non-VA benefits.
You mentioned, Mr. Mayor,
Senator Sanders, yeah.
you mentioned that the veterans, some of the veterans have many of these problems, health problems. I'm not hearing of supportive housing. I'm not hearing of those type of things to help a person get a job is good, to help him hold a job, of course, or to get out there and get it, it may be even better. I hope that you're also addressing those problems.
Well, we work with supportive housing agencies. We don't have our own housing. We work with agencies like Concern for Independent Living, Beacon House on Long Island that also does that type of thing. But we help the person. So if they're not employable, we help them get to the job. We can't help them keep the job. That would obviously be up to them. But we can do just about everything in our power to make sure they are presented to the employer in the best possible light. And I don't know if you want to piggyback on anything.
Well, yeah, as you started saying, if the veteran is not employable, what we can do is link them to any benefits that they are entitled to or they or never told about. You know, we had a gentleman come into our program. He was injured. You know, he had a bunk fall right here, which apparently is a major nerve that kind of shut down his mobility, his ability to walk. He had this surgery where, the best way that I can really say it is that there was like a magnet in his back, and he literally had to be charged.
He had a battery pack.
Yeah, to spark the nerves to tell him to walk. When he was released from the service, he didn't know that he could apply for Social Security disability. So our team helped him walk through that process. He was awarded because of his condition, and then he got like $20,000 in retroactive pay. So that was a huge help for him to get back on the road to sustainability. And he was positively discharged from our program and is living on his own now. We can help, like I said, help veterans connect to Social Security, or SSI, SSD. Like Beth said, we can help connect them to Department of Social Services if they need cash assistance or rental assistance if they offer it or if they're eligible, and SNAP. We can help assist them in the increase of service connection.
Right, we don't do the service-connected claims, but we can certainly help to put in the claim, and we can follow up, and we've done many congressional inquiries to try to get those expedited, especially when the veteran is literally homeless or on the verge. Let's see, we also have case managers. It's a short-term case management program. It's supposed to be a 90-day program, but because of the issues that are facing the people that we're helping, we tend to keep them in the program longer. So 180 days is not unlikely, and we certainly can keep someone in for longer. They do have to recertify just to make sure that they're still eligible for the program. So they get case management. We do our own outreach, so we have people that go to VA and non-VA sponsored events. We have veteran peer navigators, so we hire veterans specifically who know and understand what they may be going through. We actually have veterans on staff who have actually been homeless, so they literally know the plight that they're experiencing, and asking for help in a rather, someone who's rather prideful and is taught not to ask for help. We do have people that can be understanding of those situations. Our peer navigators can take them anywhere. They can accompany them to an appointment at the VA if they're uncomfortable. They can take them to a job interview, which I mentioned earlier. We provide legal services for the veterans. So every other week, we have an organization called Angels for Warriors come in, and they provide pro bono assistance for the veterans, which has been an absolute asset. We try to remove all the barriers to that person maintaining their housing stability. So if getting them the job, if the veteran gets the job, this is a great example. We helped a veteran get a job at a factory, and he could not step onto the grounds of the factory before he had his pair of steel-toed boots. The program allows for us to pay for boots. It allows us to provide money for certifications and training to allow them to move forward. Perhaps certifications are older and expired. We can help to pay for that so they can get them updated. I'm trying to think one of the other things.
If a veteran has a car that is
Yes.
not operational, our program allows us to pay up to a certain amount in car repair so that veteran can get to that employment opportunity.
And the most important is we can pay rental assistance. So we can take that person from homelessness or in a shelter. We can pay their broker fee. We can pay their security deposit. We can pay, for some veterans, up to 6 months of rental assistance, and for others, up to 9 months. So they are certainly given a lot of sustainability on our end in helping them to create that on their own. So it's a really great program. It helps them. It provides all the services that they could need. And whatever we don't have, we certainly utilize a lot of resources in the community to fill those gaps.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Bob.
Beth and Marlo covered SSVF pretty well, but I just want to speak about some of my subcontractors. I work with Suffolk County United Veterans, and they actually utilize the Dwyer Project model, so they're my peer-to-peer outreach workers. And also, we outreach with our legal services. We do Toro law, so the colleges, so we have them come in and they help not only the profession itself, but the students. So that as the students interact and learn a lot of issues with our veterans. And also, I'd like to speak, because right now we're coming to the end, so we're starting to analyze all our data and seeing exactly what's going on. And you brought up supportive housing. I think Medicaid is going to kind of be where you start to utilize some form of Medicaid for some supportive housing. It's not just for they usually set it up for Medicaid, but a lot of our veterans are starting to utilize it too. So a lot of these programs are putting our veterans into it, because what we are seeing is they need supportive housing. Also, this new funding that's coming out, the Housing Trust Fund, I think maybe we need to just have some of that funded, because it is geared for extremely low individuals. So people that we are seeing with SSVF in Long Island that have under 30% of the AMI or have zero income, these housings they're going to start developing and building these units geared for individuals with low income. And also what we've seen too in EOC of Suffolk is a lot of our veterans has been incarcerated or get incarcerated, and then they get stuck in this system and not being charged, but sometimes only being there for a week or 2 weeks and not having the money to get bailed out. So we're looking at different avenues to try to create a non-for-profit bail bonds to try to help our veterans and our low income when they do get locked up, they don't get stuck in the prison system or lose their housing or lose their once you get locked up or in the prison system, sometimes it's for a period of time, and our veterans, and then when they come out, they lost their job, they can't apply for Section 8. So a lot of things do happen.
Can I just interject for a minute, and for the Senator's awareness, in Suffolk County, we do have a vets court,
Yes.
Which has been wildly successful. The Vietnam Veterans of America actually support the vets court and help as mentors for the vets who are going through the legal process, and also help them with post-legal transition. But we've also found that there is a small veterans population in our jails, and the county sheriff in Suffolk County, as well as the vets court and others, have agreed with the county legislature that we will be creating a separate veterans wing within our new jail system, and we'll be tracking to see the recidivism rate and behavioral issues, because we suspect that given their basic training or their officer candidate school or wherever they were, that being in that environment and back with that camaraderie should help them. And of course, those programs also include the mental health services, the vocational rehabilitation services. So we're trying something new down in the county with co-locating our veterans population within our jail system. And hopefully within a year or so, we have the ability to tell you with absolute data and metrics that this is something that should probably go state and countrywide. I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
And that's really what I just have. There's a lot of resources for our veterans, and I know it doesn't seem like we have a big problem in Suffolk County, but I believe it's going to start coming in the next couple of years. We're going to see a big issue and a big push of a lot of our homeless veterans coming into our community.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now we're going to move over to this side of the table to Chuck.
Well, thank you.
Tell us a little about Patriot Hills.
I will, just a little bit. Patriot Hills is a grassroots organization started a few years ago by Janine Manarino. She wanted to be here today, but she's off in training. And retired veteran, just saw the need, her heart did. If you could see this lady's passion for veterans because of her history throughout it, she really should be here instead of me, bottom line. But the organization itself is interested in different aspects of training, therapeutic healing, reintegration. But what has been talked about here this morning is that oftentimes veterans just don't know where to go.
That's right.
And the other piece of that, of course, is you take a young man or young woman, 18 years old, you pound that can-do mantra into them, and then at 22, they're struggling through some disabilities, PTSD, and you say, well, all you have to do is go ask. They're not going to go ask. They knew it was career-ending to mention it to their first sergeant when they were in uniform, and it's not that easy for them to just do that on the outside. So at Patriot Hills, like many of the organizations here today, we're trying to break that invisible barrier, because there are many programs that we already heard that are available. And so Patriot Hills right now, long-term, is we're in the process, and it looks like we're finally going to get the funding to buy in the town of Princetown, upstate, over 100-acre farm that has a huge farmhouse and some other buildings there. Our goal there is to create that training center, create a place where they can go, have short-term housing to get them to maybe some of these other programs, as I've heard this morning, would be awesome. And then at the same time, begin schooling them in different school sets. So an example would be, as we looked into possibly, like what jobs are on the outside that really require that formal that formation in your mind that there's parameters you live within, there's fence lines that don't exist, but they do by rules and guidance, and who better than a veteran to understand that? And so, for instance, interstate trucking, I mean, we read every day about horror stories about drivers on 53-foot tractor-trailer units. Who better for a veteran to be able to comply with Department of Transportation requirements and to do that in a manner that's professional. However, many have physical limitations, as we know, and we've looked into how do you modify a truck or a tractor that they can get into the right type of handholds. Many things today with automatic transmissions and things like that, they can overcome those things. But then we also looked for the unintended consequences. You put this truck driver on the road now, and he or she's gone for a week or 2 weeks at a time, making deliveries, and all of a sudden they're alone in the back of that sleeper. And so we're kind of, as we struggle through this ourselves in development, we wonder, sometimes the good intentions don't always end up being good intentions. And so that's our long-term goal right now. We're working on. We're very close to funding through Berkshire Bank to get that piece of property, and with that, develop it into something where we can maybe partner even with it. We've looked at the city mission at the great training programs they've had in Schenectady with the folks that need help and work them out of poverty and into self-sustainability. The second thing we've looked at, and it's a grassroots thing that's sort of taking traction, it's a group of local folks that thought, well, maybe we can build, renovate a home, a duplex for maybe 2 families for a veteran. And folks that have shown interest in it so far have been Mr. Rich Paulson from the Paulson Development Company in Albany, Mr. Roger Hene Reels of Westerlo, Jim Pratt for the Veterans Volunteer Center, he's on board with that, and Mr. Dean Murata from R.J. Valente, a big excavation company. And so we're looking right now to find a piece of property somewhere or a piece of land to develop and to make that hopefully a home for a future we could offer up to a veteran. We see many win-wins in these types of endeavors. You know, corporate entities uniting and bringing their expertise together, obviously. Endorsements from people of interest and influence, very much like this panel right here today. Veterans groups collaborating. We as our organization looked at this, we said we didn't want to be the one looking for that individual or that family that may qualify for something like this. Rather than that, maybe we get veterans groups such as, of course, Patriot Hills would be part of that, but maybe Saratoga County peer-to-peer mentoring is a good program that's out there. The Veterans Volunteer Center we just mentioned, the VA, and maybe like the VFW even, to get together and say, collaborate, come up with that person, that family that qualifies for this, and then in doing that, of course, there's win-wins for all of them to be part of that process. And it's so encouraging today to hear about banking and real estate partnering to find opportunities to maybe get one of those zombie buildings. At first we've heard of this, and it's, you know, kudos to all the folks that have come up with that type of an idea and to help communities. We even thought, boy, if there was that Brazen finance organization out there and Brazen realty organization that really thought beyond what we understand as how do you buy property and then how do you sell property, that they look at one that's in foreclosure or a short sale and say, you know, there's a possibility that there's advantages to everybody in that troublesome arrangement, that we could maybe do something for a veteran and ultimately free everybody of a big burden, and everybody gets a piece of a win-win out of that. And then lastly, of course, and I'm hearing it today, you know, just government and organizations, volunteer organizations, you know, getting together and just trying to do something good for veterans. I think right now that a program, and as I've heard of so many this morning, is the essence of people giving from their hearts to someone in need, but somebody that's really given a lot. I don't want to belabor this at all because I don't want to lose that essence at all, but I just want you to know that you're going to reference a talk show host that Mr. James Dobson had, Focus on the Family. He was talking to a single mom. Her husband and the dad of 2 boys was killed in Afghanistan. And he was talking about the trials of raising those 2 boys without that dad. And he says, how do you keep their dad relevant in their lives? And she said, their dad is there every day for them. And then he said, well, how do you do that? And she said, well, I can tell you right now, Dr. Dobson, every day, she said, when there was a 10 and 12-year-old, every day they grab their backpacks to go to school. She said, when they get to the door, I yell out to them, what would your dad tell you to do today? And he said, they'll both turn around and say, always choose the hard right over the easy wrong. And she said, he's as alive today as if he were here. And, and I look at everybody here today, and you're choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. We all know that it's easy to see the trip barriers and oftentimes use those to stop progress. And I commend all of you for not seeing it. The old military mantra, as many of us know, either through movies or actually having served, is you don't leave a soldier behind. A Marine, an airman, a sailor, a Coast Guardsman, you don't leave them behind. And I'm so encouraged being here today to be able to speak about the Patriots Hills programs we're trying to do here, and to just know that with everybody in this room, you're not leaving them behind. And that is just awesome. I'm so pleased to have this few minutes with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Volusia. Next will be Kirby. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Sanders.
Mr. Chair, you of course have brought together a great team. I want to ask a question and make a small contribution. You mentioned that Patriot Hill would do short-term housing for the veterans. How short is short-term around?
We're thinking up to about a year, and having talked with Mr. Mike Sicoscio in the Schenectady City Mission, they have found with the poverty that they deal with every day that he said realistically to bring them from a point of homelessness or brokenness to a point of self-sustainability over the years that they've been doing that, it's actually over 100 years it's been in the city of Schenectady, but with the training and things that they've been doing for about 40 years now, it takes about 6 years to actually get them across that bridge to the point that all of a sudden every day is every day, and it's not a bad day. It's just another day that you have to get through. And so we've talked about if we could have up to about a year and then integrate or definitely get in touch with the folks that are here, that would give them time to help us to identify a place maybe in the future where we could plug those veterans in, and rather than almost an urgent need, a more planned out process of a need. But wow, there's so many great programs here that we might be able to hopefully plug in a little bit or maybe even help them some.
Can I encourage you to look at the Youth Build model, a federal program of funding based on young people? However, it sounds like you're moving towards doing similar. Youth Build takes young people and has them do many different things, including rebuild a home for the community, rebuild a structure for the community, and it buys and then turns that structure over to the community, some nonprofit entity. Can I also encourage you to look at into the CRA regulations, Community Reinvestment Act regulations that the banks have that say that they should be aiding organizations like your own. You may find funding under the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, regulations. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Right.
I think it sounds fantastic.
Just please